Hi, this is Robin Piggott of Astral Driving School, Ireland, and welcome to another of our Learner Driver tutorials. We've taken getting it to record, and more recently, in fact in the last week, we've managed to get our first video up online, so we hope this will be the start of many video tutorials that are going to be of benefit to you, the learner driver. Now, this short tutorial we're going to talk about initially the terminology that is used both by driving instructors and of course by driving examiners. Now, there are a number of terms that are unique to driving instruction, driving instructors, and used also by examiners on the driving test. So it's really important that you get to know these. And for a simple reason that when you do eventually come to do your driving test, you're going to have to respond instantly to an instruction, and if you're not sure or completely in the dark as to what a term means or what an instruction means, then you're going to be in pretty serious difficulty. So if you'll excuse me referring to some of my notes to begin with. We'll start with in fact we're going to break this up into perhaps three short videos, and they'll be, first of all, the terms that we use in conjunction with the car and all its equipment. Then we're going to talk about the terms that we use when we're discussing driving techniques, and then finally we are going to talk about the special descriptions that are used when we're out on the road, in other words, road descriptions and road markings. So let's kick off with what are common terms in relation to the car. They might be terms that we'd use inside the car or to refer to equipment, for example, under the bonnet, under the hood. Most people know what an accelerator is. There are a number of descriptions: throttle pedal, accelerator pedal. But to make life easy for you all, we shorten that to use a more American style of description, which is the gas pedal, which gas is short for gasoline. So to give you an example, it's much easier for an instructor to get a message across to his pupil, his learner driver, by saying more gas, off the gas, get on the gas, than it is to be very polite and say please use the accelerator more, because by that time you've probably lost the situation. So, as I said, the word gas pedal comes from the common description used in America for gasoline. Pedal travel. That's the distance any of your pedals will travel from start to finish. I mean, we've basically got three pedals. We have a clutch pedal, a brake pedal in the middle, hopefully, and a gas pedal. And so pedal travel is the distance that any of these pedals will go from start to finish. For example, the clutch, which goes down to the clutch pedal, which goes down to the floor, has much more travel than the brake pedal, unless of course your brakes are malfunctioning, in which case you shouldn't be driving the car anyway. If the brake pedal goes down to the floor, you've no brakes, but that's something we'll cover on another occasion, on another tutorial. So the gas pedal again only has a limited distance to travel from 0 to fully down on the floor. Another term or terms that we use in conjunction with tyres, and that is tread depth. That's the depth of rubber on a tyre tread, and it's measured in millimetres. And the tread is the portion of the tyre which is in conjunction with, which is in contact with the road. The legal limit, the legal minimum currently throughout the EU is 1.6 millimetres. A new tyre, incidentally, would have a tread depth of about 8 millimetres. So when you're at the legal minimum 1.6 millimetres, you're 80% or more worn out. So it's probably a good idea to change them before that. Again, we have on our website a couple of pages on tyre care. It's probably one of the most important pieces of kit in your car, and it's the one that's probably the most neglected, in my view, basically because tyres are relatively inexpensive. Of course, if something is very expensive in a car, which most other things are, you tend to take more interest in it and get to know a little bit more about it. But anyway, perhaps it's as well that they're not so expensive. So the fact that you can buy a tyre or a set of tyres for relatively small outlay means that you really should, because this is what's between you and driving off the cliff into the sea. The time that you spend learning about tyre care and tyre maintenance and making sure that your tyres are in tip-top condition, they'll really repay you in the long term. Okay, another part of the tyre is the sidewall. That's the side of the tyre which is more visible, and it's much thinner and is very susceptible to bumps and scrapes and knocks, the school of hard knocks, which is why tyres and tarmac do not go, tyres and I've got myself on a twist here now. Tyres and curbing are a no-no. Tyres are meant to be caressing the tarmac, not the curb. If you hit the curb, even if you don't mount the curb, if you hit the curb with a bang, you're going to cause damage or to the tyre or wreck it completely. So the other part of the tyre, of course, is the tyre pressure gauge, through which you input the air. Steering lock. That's a phrase that we use to describe the movement of the steering wheel in either direction. It can be clockwise or anti-clockwise. And when we use the phrase full lock, it means that your steering wheel has turned as far as it will go in that particular direction. So that's steering lock. Reservoir. This is a fairly common term that we use because there are a number of reservoirs in the car under the bonnet. They all hold, obviously, fluids of different types, and they're very essential, and it's essential that you check them on a very regular basis. We subscribe to the well-established routine that you should do your vehicle checks once a week or every 500 miles. Now, as a beginner driver or even someone that's just passed a test, you're probably not going to be doing more than 500 miles a week, but you know, it depends. I mean, if you're out on the road as a professional driver in some capacity or other, you could quite easily do more. So the 500 once a week or every 500 miles. So if you're doing 800 miles a week, which is easy to do if you're on the road every day covering big distances, particularly crisscrossing the country, then you need to be checking it presumably then every twice a week. So reservoir. What reservoirs are there? Well, you've got very common one, which is your screen wash fluid reservoir, which you need to check every day, particularly if you're doing a lot of driving, and particularly in the winter months. I think in the winter months my recommendation is you check it every day. There's absolutely nothing worse being on a long journey, having been stuck behind a truck which is spewing out all kinds of mud and unmentionable. You're going to use an awful lot of screen wash to keep your screen clean and scratch free, and again, as an example, on a very bad day, if you're doing several hundred miles, you're quite likely to use up the whole of your screen wash fluid reservoir. The capacity of the reservoir varies from car to car. In our current VW Polo TDI, which we've used for school car now for 9 years, it has a 2 litre capacity. Other cars sometimes have 4 litres, but either way you can use up a whole lot in a very bad day. And if that is the case, you're doing a lot of driving, then you need to carry a bottle of water in the boot, and that will, if you do run out, that will mean you don't have to be driving miles looking for a garage whose water tap is probably busted, so you can keep yourself in tip-top shape. We'll be going into more details on another tutorial about the emergency kit which you should, and other essentials which you should carry in your car, and this is all part of becoming a skillful, competent and safe driver. So we've got screen wash fluid, we've got brake fluid reservoir, obviously important to be checking. You've got your coolant reservoir, which is usually very visible. Brake fluid reservoir sometimes is a little bit more difficult to get out, not always easy to see, but brake fluid reservoir is going to be something like this size, about half the size of a football. And in many cars you're going to have now a power steering fluid reservoir. In some instances the power steering fluid is combined with the brake fluid reservoir setup. It is in our VW Polo currently. Reservoirs. Okay, dipstick. I think most people have heard of that term. That's the device you use for checking your oil, and it's easy to spot too in most cars. Filler cap, that's where your engine oil goes in, and another term that we use is the alternator, which is a very important piece of kit. It's the device which, when the engine is running, when you're moving, is sending a charge into the battery, keeping the battery nicely charged up. And it's always visible in the front of the engine compartment. It's usually almost the first thing you see when you open the bonnet and look straight down. It's usually there. We'll be going into, as I said, we'll be going into more detail of all these things. We're just covering the terms now, basic terminology. And coolant, we've already mentioned coolant reservoir, so coolant obviously is the fluid. It's not water, it's a mixture of water and chemicals, and that's usually going to need to be replaced about every 2 years. Okay, that's the first part of our tutorial.